Maybe that's a sign. Maybe I should shut my mouth. But I won't. Classic survival horror is so back. Hey people, Voice talking to you, and today we're checking out Total Chaos, an upcoming psychological survival horror FPS that has us exploring an abandoned town infested with crimes against nature. If you'd like to check this game out for yourself or see my full playthrough stream, there are links to both down in the description. But before we begin, a quick content warning. This title focuses heavily on psychological horror and broaches topics like mental illness and self-harm, so be aware of what you're getting into here. Total Chaos was originally a full conversion mod for Doom 2. The idea has remained surprisingly well loved through the years. Now, the developers are looking to make their concept into its own standalone title that dives deeper into the story and utilizes modern graphics for a better experience overall. Now, I never played the mod myself, and the story in this demo was pretty vague, so bear with me here. We are a Coast Guard responding to a mysterious SOS signal out near an abandoned island. As the storm suddenly rages and strange entities attack our ship, we end up stranded on the shore of the old coal mining town called Fort Oasis. Freezing and alone on the abandoned island, we seek shelter within the nearby industrial complex. Here, the mysterious voice on the radio becomes clearer, telling us we've been here before and we should go looking for something down in the deepest pits of the mine. With apparently nothing better to do, we make our way deeper into the darkness to uncover some sort of terrible truth. Personally, my theory is that our character is losing their mind and the voice on the radio is actually just our own voice. But regardless of what I think, the story from then on is pretty threadbare. We find the occasional note offering us mostly random information from various sources. And I don't mind reading, but scattered notes have never been an especially gripping way to tell a story. That said, the visual aspects of this game are excellent, showing off both bleak underground corridors and desolate shorelines. Of course, I did notice a heavy reliance on tight spaces and reused assets, but seeing as this is a demo, that's not entirely inadmissible. These endless passageways of brick and stone are certainly bleak, but it'll start to become repetitive and even boring if it's not expanded on in full release. But even so, it's hard to deny how claustrophobic and tense it can feel to crawl through this forgotten underground world. Especially once you realize we're not alone down here. Of course, Fort Oasis is technically abandoned, but the reason for that becomes clear rather quickly. Some sort of outbreak ravaged this place years ago, leaving the inhabitants twisted into hordes of angry meat monsters. The standard zombie-looking guys aren't especially scary-looking, I'll admit. Some of the more creative enemies, however, are not the kind of things you want to be trapped in a crawl space with. Yippee! We aren't completely defenseless down here, though. When you're really looking, you'd be surprised at how many random objects can be used as a weapon. With something heavy in hand, we can perform combo attacks, charge up powerful strikes, parry incoming blows, and dash away if things get rough. The impact for most of our abilities feel really solid, though the animations themselves could definitely use some work. My biggest issue with the attacks is that most of them don't appear to actually land before the enemy takes damage. Not only does this look bad, but it also means that you don't have to wait for your swing to actually hit an enemy before starting the next attack or dodging away. With that in mind, fast weapons can pretty easily stun lock opponents so long as you don't run out of stamina. Of course, this is a survival horror game, so combat is no walk in the park. We can take a few hits before things get nasty, but our stamina is severely limited. You get one dodge or a couple of swings with a heavy weapon before you're out of breath. It does recover quickly, however, and on top of a decent close quarters combat, we can also lob throwables at monsters. A brick or a rock to the head can stun an opponent, but smashing a bottle of alcohol over them and leading them to a fire tends to be much more effective. Any melee weapon can be thrown as well. Be careful though, as sharp objects may deal more damage when they're thrown, but they can't be recovered until the enemy they're stuck in is put down. With the weighty but fluid movement and the variations on melee combat, I'd say this feels remarkably similar to the claustrophobic brawling of Dead Island. Overall, combat isn't too punishing, and players probably won't struggle on standard difficulty as long as they're cautious. That does include resource management though, as supplies are vital down here. Of course, we can't let our health zero out, but we also need to manage hunger, bleeding, and madness. Hunger will rapidly increase with stamina use, so finding food and eating regularly will keep your energy up. Bleeding isn't a damage over time debuff in this game, instead representing our overall level of injury. Taking hits or using nasty syringes will increase this malice, leading to lower max health and stamina. I don't quite understand how the madness system works yet. At first I figured it was going to be something we needed to keep below a certain threshold to avoid unforeseen consequences like bleeding or hunger. In actuality, raising our madness seems to be a conscious decision to take crazy pills and watch the horrifying reality around us grow even worse. This seems to open up new pathways, but without very explicit instructions, I would have had no idea of any change. The idea of the madness system is very cool, but honestly, it could do with a lot more spice. Finding pills to increase madness feels no different than hunting keys to open a door. It would be nice to see madness increase naturally around certain phenomena or as a result of enemy encounters. It should also carry a certain level of risk. For example, high madness may open up secret doors, but it also increases the monster spawns or makes existing threats more dangerous. Scattered around the environment, there are workbenches the player can use to craft and repair weapons and equipment. Each weapon has its own stats, including overall damage, blocking power, stamina costs, and even if they can be used in a power attack. They also have a durability stat and will eventually break. Most weapons can be repaired if you have the right materials, and when looking at the stats for some of the handles that you could fit the weapon heads to, there may even be some level of customization here. As far as survival goes, it's kind of hit or miss right now. If the devs want to encourage players to explore, they may want to make the world a bit more varied in visuals and loot type. Blueprints or special weapons would be a great place to start, but adding afflictions like poison and limiting the availability of resources could also help sell the dark, gritty atmosphere the devs are shooting for. Right now, it's all a bit too easy, and things like hunger don't matter much. The immersion and scare factor in this game are already showing a ton of promise, and the back and forth of combat can be really satisfying. But combat is mostly rip and tear instead of run and hide. The story is still trapped in walls of text, and it's hardly worth exploring when the greater world is just a lifeless basement. There's still a lot of work to be done with this one, but the bleak atmosphere and classic survival horror style has me optimistic. This one is definitely worth keeping an eye on if you like games like Silent Hill or Resident Evil. But I'm also just the voice in your head, so what do you think about Total Chaos? Did you ever play the mod? How does this look in comparison? Do you like the visual style, or is it a bit too bland? Does the combat sit well with you, or are you looking for more of a struggle? What changes would you like to see in the finished version? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like or a comment helps me out more than you know, and shuts up the voices for a little while. If you want more, subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep new content coming your way, because I put out new stuff every week. Thanks so much for listening to me today. You'll be hearing from me again real soon.